Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. And tonight we have a special edition of the Chris Heasley Radio Show. This is our pre-election show. And we're going to cover everything. It's a big night. Tomorrow's the big day. We're going to find out who wins what election. Very exciting in Fort Bend County, very exciting on a national level. And we have with us today Dan Matthews. Dan, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Yeah, Chris.
Good. Do you play any role with the Republican Party? Do you have any title?
No, I don't have an official title, but I chair the Texas Conservative Forum, one of the PAC that we started.
Excellent. Very good. And we have Jacob Lee in the audio, or here tonight.
Thank you, Chris. How you doing?
Good. Could you give us your title?
I'm the Communications Committee Chair for the Fort Bend County Republican Party.
Excellent. Very good. So let's just start it off. Tell me what you guys think. What's at stake at this election?
Well, what's at stake is really our local community. We're looking at an election where in Fort Bend County, we're going to come down to several hundred votes that are going to make the difference between whether we have criminals elected to government or whether we have some good people that will help our families and our community in a brighter future.
Okay, so that's a very bold statement. Criminals that are elected. Can you expand on that?
Well, when you look at what we've got running in Fort Bend County, we have people that are literally indicted for felonies. We've had people that have been indicted for felonies in the past and have pled guilty to lesser charges. We have people who have lawsuits that are going to range in the millions of dollars that are going to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars to settle these lawsuits for sexual harassment, violating citizens' First Amendment rights. So we literally have people on the ballot on the Democrat side. It's a basket of corruption from the top of their ticket to the bottom of their ticket locally. And the choice is, do you want these people running your county? Do you want people who've been indicted for bankruptcy fraud taking your tax money? Because our tax assessor, you literally write a check to the tax assessor. You don't write it to the county. You write it to that person. And there's money that's gone missing. There's all kinds of issues at the tax assessor's office. And she was indicted for bankruptcy fraud. So you literally are looking at people who can't be trusted. You have people who have committed fake racism and all kinds of crazy things in Fort Bend County that's gone on that are running for office. And if they get elected, they're going to be in charge of things. And when you look at our infrastructure, the potholes, the police, my neighborhood, we've had 2 break-ins in the last year, and we've never had a break-in in 25 years. And 4 years ago, when Troy Nels was our sheriff, we had a police presence in my neighborhood. When Mike Beard was our constable, we got redistricted. Now we've got Daryl Smith. We don't see a constable anymore unless he's there to serve somebody papers. They don't patrol. So it's literally safety, infrastructure, corruption. The election is about your local neighborhood and about your local family, and there's a lot more at stake than just the presidency.
Please, Dan, do you want to join in, please?
Well, I agree with what Jacob said. This election is the 2-step. One is the national level, we're starting from the top of the ticket. People look at the country, what the direction the country is going. And especially, that's a major issue. And then we look at down ballot. In Fort Bend County itself is a total mess. I mean, I've been living in Fort Bend for the last 35 years, and I've never seen any administration or any elected officials has been this corrupt, been in the public, not in a good way. I have not seen many of them in locally wearing the blue suits or orange suits and just showing the mug shots, and this total disrespect, especially when you are an elected official. You have to have your dignity. You have to serve the people with the honesty and integrity. I mean, that one, from the top of the Fort Bend, we see that corruption, and that's several indictment, arrest, those things. And he mentioned about the tax office. Tax office is also a big mess. We have Jason Joseph is running for tax office, and if you look at that one as well, it's a big mess. I saw some videos that not videos, rather reports that money missing from tax office in some of the office, that county has to replenish that money from the taxpayers. Those things are happening there. So, I mean, where is the integrity of the elected officials? We're not seeing it. That's why people are coming in big numbers, not only for the top of the ticket to the president's level. That issues are still there. We had to get that one corrected, like open border and inflation and economy, and it's all killing people. And tomorrow is going to be an exciting day, and I'm hoping that people will take this message to their heart and come out. But before you vote, I will say that touch your wallet, bring your wallet with you and see how much money you have left in there. I'm sure there's not much there. I mean, many people, even I personally, people telling me that they are broke. Okay, I never seen people in this level so far.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both just touched on a lot of things. Let's first just talk about one of the many things that you talked about, which is the corruption. We're watching our county die. We're watching it go spin down the drain in a downward spiral, and it's heartbreaking. And it's all coming from one political party, the Democrat Party, the party of the globalists. And if we want to just talk about one race, Jason Joseph, the Republican, running for tax assessor, versus Carmen Turner, the incumbent Democrat. And Carmen Turner, there was a whistleblower who came out this week and said that in her office that they were doing fraudulent deed transfers or property transfers or something like that. There was a whistleblower that came out that said something about that. But then in addition to that, Carmen Turner is what is the status? What is her legal status right now?
Well, she pled guilty to a minor charge of
bankruptcy fraud.
Well, it wasn't. It actually was perjury.
Perjury. Okay.
She perjured herself in her bankruptcy fraud case, and so she pled out of the felony charges to a misdemeanor. So has a misdemeanor on her record, so she did not get the felony charge. But that's kind of what our criminal justice system is these days, where people are no longer being prosecuted for their crimes. They're getting out on lesser sentences. And she has no business being in the tax assessor's office.
So Carmen Turner versus Jason Joseph, whereas Jason Joseph is I would say he's a professional. He works in the IT sector, and to me it appears he's putting it all in to win this for the sake of the county. So we're going to see what happens in that election. But let's talk about the judge races, okay? So we've had several people come in here who are running for judges, and the one thing that they said over and over again is that our courts are not operating, that our courts are backed up considerably, that in some courts you place a file in there, it's not going to be heard for a year. So I want everybody in Fort Bend County to understand that if you have any sort of legal issue and you take it to the courts, the gauntlet, the waiting process, your effort will die there just through waiting. And it's because Democrats are running our judges, our courts, and I don't know what is the issue. If it's inefficiency, if it's a purposeful tactic to take down our courts, I don't know. But can you guys elaborate on that at all?
Well, I've had some personal experience recently. When I was president of my HOA, we had a couple of lawsuits that went through Fort Bend County courts, and simple matters that should have been settled pretty quickly and should have not cost the HOA a lot of money ended up costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, because by dragging it out, right, every time you show up in court, it's $20,000 bill. And then you have a hearing, and then they go, well, I haven't made up my mind. And it'll take 6 months to get a hearing. And then they'll just delay. And so it's great for the lawyers, but it's horrible for the people on the other end who are sitting here waiting to have their cases heard. And like I said, these are simple matters that should have been settled rather quickly in our courts, but having Democrat judges, and I think one of the things they're scared of is getting overturned, and so they're scared to rule. Because for a judge, if they don't make the correct decision, and I think some of these people may not be qualified to be in the jobs that they're in, if they don't make the correct decision and they get overturned in the appellate court, their career's over. They're not going any higher than they are. And if you're a good lawyer, I think one of the problems we have is if you're a good lawyer, you're making 3 or 4 times what these judges are. So if you're a bad lawyer, a judge is a great job. And I think we have a lot of those Democrat judges that would not cut it in the real world, in the competitive market, And so they are now on the bench, and that's what we're getting.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because our judges are not competent. Personally, I know a few of them. They have many backlog. But look at not only the judicial judges, look at the top of the county judge. Look at the example that person set. So if it's a county judge is setting this example, and what else you expect from rest of them, whether the judicial or down to the prison level. So we have a big problem in Fort Bend County. It's time to clean up. We need good judges. There are some good judges got elected last year, especially on the Republican side. We have some great guys. I'm particularly know Ed Crenick. Ed Crenick is a great guy. He had a very good credentials. I mean, it's not for the taking a pay cut to serve the people, but his passion to do that. He could be making 4 or 5 times more outside, and there's there's an enterprise that you can make as much as you want, but more of a service-minded, and plus that you take that's like serving the community with honesty.
Well, so that's the one race I wanted to talk about was
Sure.
Ed Crenick. So who is Ed Crenick's opponent?
Tamika Carter.
Okay, so as I understand it, you have Ed Crenick, who is running for the district judge, and Tamika Carter is the incumbent, and she's the Democrat. Mm-hmm. And did she recently make a statement that enforcing the law is in itself is immoral, or something of that effect?
Yep. What I heard that, and I did listen to that conversation, her statement. What she said is what the Republicans are, based on all these indictments, some of the indictments. It was not Republicans' fault, okay? Republicans never imposed anything to the county judge, KP George, or the precinct 3, the candidate or nominee. Republicans did not do anything. But what the statement she made was, we are pushing this on that. We are wrongfully accusing or indicting it. That was a racial statement she made. A judge should not do that. But that shows the character of that person.
Okay, so let's segue that into crime, because that's a direct reflection on crime. So what is the state of Fort Bend County today with regard to crime and safety?
Crime is up. Crime is up in Fort Bend County. We're seeing crime in areas we never have. Our current sheriff is hiding the crime statistics. If you go onto the Fort Bend County website and look at crime statistics, you will not find any reporting from the sheriff's department. If you want to find out what's going on with crime in the sheriff's department, you have to file a Freedom of Information request and then hope that they'll grant it to you. I actually got an email today from someone who's trying hard to get information out of the sheriff's department, and will continue after the election. They've got multiple filings with the AG's office because the sheriff will not disclose all of the crime stuff that was disclosed under Sheriff Nels. They are hiding what's going on. If you do go up to the Secretary of State, or I guess not, it was Department of Public Safety's website, you can get the crime statistics that they report, but those are the only mandatory statistics. There's a lot of other crimes that go on that don't get reported, that aren't mandatorily reported, that used to get reported under the Republican sheriff. And so they're hiding the crime, and the crime stats you can get is we're running about 8% up in crime since Sheriff Fagan took office. But the more alarming thing is murder has gone through the roof in Fort Bend County. Murder, I think it was up like 3 times what it was last year. It was it's like up 150% or something. Murder is up, rape is up, the most violent crimes in the county are up. We're down deputies. We don't have enough deputies. They're covering more square miles than they've ever covered before. There are more citizens that have moved into Fort Bend County than there ever have before. And we are not getting the coverage or the people that we need to protect our families, our communities. It's not happening under the current Democrat administration.
Okay, so just to put that into perspective, we were talking about Ed Crenick, district judge candidate Ed Crenick running against incumbent Tamika Carter. And while we're in this epic crime wave, Tamika Carter, who is the incumbent, who is the Democrat, who is the current district judge, Tamika Carter says that enforcing the laws is in fact racist. Meanwhile, rape has gone through the roof in Fort Bend County. Murder has gone through the roof in Fort Bend County. And we have a judge making a moral statement on the enforcement of law being immoral. Okay, so I think that when you see this crime begin to skyrocket, it's a reflection of the fact that our county is run by a majority Democrat party. Okay, now let's move to the county sheriff race. We have Eric Fagan, the county sheriff, the Democrat, the incumbent, versus Marshall Slott. Marshall Slott has a career in law enforcement. He's a lifelong Fort Bend County resident. What do we have today? Because I've heard these statistics that Eric Fagan's going around saying crime is down with a smirk on his face. And I can tell you where I live in Meadows Place, nobody feels safe. Nobody's believing that line, okay? And so now we hear, what is the number of open slots right now in the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Department?
I hear 187.
187 spots open in the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Department, and we're supposed to believe that crime is down? This is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, crime has no boundaries, okay? So you already mentioned, Jacob Lee mentioned about the Fort Bend. Look at all across America, okay? Well, the news and the stat came out, says crime was down 20%, and everybody believed it, like, well, we are much more safer now, until they cooked. All those numbers were cooked, and Trump, he announced that about 2-3 months ago, said, no, they are not taking the violent crimes and the crimes in certain cities. Now after that they came back and say what? Now his crime went 25% above from what they are reported. That's one national level. And the same thing in local level too. When you have a 20% of deficiency or a gap in your overall law enforcement officers, that itself is inviting crimes to your neighborhood. And not to mention about defunding or adequately fund the law enforcement and their budget.
So Dan, I want to get your opinion on something because I know you got to leave here quick.
Sure.
But hold for me for a minute. Let's go down a level. Let's talk about the constables. Jacob, you were saying, tell me about your experience with constables in Fort Bend County.
Well, back before the Democrats redistricted all of the precincts, I was under Mike Beard's constable watch. And in my neighborhood, at least 3 days a week, Mike Beard had a constable patrolling my neighborhood, driving through, just doing a drive-by, having a police presence, just somebody who'd come by. Now that we've got Daryl Smith, I'm on the south side of the Brazos River. It's a 45-minute drive from Missouri City over to the other part of his precinct. There's no way. There's a river between, and they have to cross through Precinct 3 to get it back into Precinct 2. They don't come down there anymore. They don't patrol. The new constable has no presence on that side of Fort Bend County. So when we talk about law enforcement, it's compounded. When we have a sheriff who doesn't have enough people to mount adequate patrols and protection, and then you compound it by redistricting and making it so that constables can't even patrol their whole area because it's too big. They've created their own law enforcement crime problem just in redistricting, just in the way they did the district boundaries. They have messed up law enforcement.
Okay, let's talk about the showdown of all showdowns. Mm-hmm. Nabil Shaikh versus Ali Shikani for constable. I mean, the tension and the all of the rivalry between these two camps is quite entertaining. What is the state of that race?
I think it's too close to call. I think it's going to come down. My money is on Ali. I think he's the better candidate. He's the guy that I want to see in there because I think he's the future of Precinct 3. Precinct 3 needs a good, strong Republican leader, and that's Ali.
Yeah, I'm seeing that on that race, that particular race, there's a lot of people are really interested on that, and a lot more people are coming in, and whether they have their candidate in their mind, that brings a lot of turnout. So that's a race that we're all watching, see how that's going to play out.
And I want to talk about the race of all races. So we have Terrell Patel. He's been indicted, 9 counts on an indictment for a fraudulent scheme to portray the residents of Fort Bend County as racist and then make these racial epithets towards him, right? Busted, okay? And he's going up against a man that is about, there's the foundation of Fort Bend County, really, Andy Myers. How's that race looking?
Well, that's probably the most watched race in Fort Bend County. When you look at all this different race, I mean, when you have a problem with your body, the first thing you look at is your the head is right or not. The problem started from the head of the Fort Bend County, which is the county judge. This particular race with Precinct 3, Terrell Patel versus Andy Myers, I mean, clearly Andy Myers is the greatest person that can run in that district. He has a very good track record of reducing property tax. He's the taxpayer's best friend. I mean, that title don't come with without you earning it. He did earn that. But in the other side, what is Terrell Patel earned? He earned a title of a criminally indicted. That's the title he received. So you know what? Earlier I said it. Those candidates, when you sign to serve the people, just be honest. Keep your hands clean. You cooking about today I talked to somebody about an hour ago, somebody from his own community said, Dan, I would not vote for him because he brought a bad name to the entire community. That's very shameful. You cannot wash that away. You cannot wash that, including the county judge and Precinct 3 nominee Terrell Patel brought a utter shame to the community. And they are as a disgrace. You can't say that, well, he did just a mistake. That's not a mistake. That's a mistake carried out for almost 4 years. And somebody was really advising him to do the mischief. That's terrible. That's terrible. They say, well, he did it and the other person didn't have any role in it. No, that's not true. I have some personal connection to that one. That's what I'm saying, that in 2018, the county judge, when he was running for Fort Bend County, called me and he spewed the same hate message. So I knew that word is coming from. And I saw that it's in writing and social media. I clearly knew that word is coming from. So Fort Bend County has no place for hate. We are a county with a very diverse population. We live with harmony, love, and affections, and that's the way it should be. But this Democrat judge and Democrat commissioner nominee, it destroyed Fort Bend County. It will take years and years and some good people to erase those things and bring that distinguished name back to Fort Bend County.
And what Dan, I'm going to jump in here because I want to get one more question. I know you're on a tight times. But what Dan's referring to is the Fort Bend's own Jussie Smollett strategy.
Yep.
The Jussie Smollett fake racist victims, KP George and Terrell Patel. Terrell Patel is on the candidacy for county commissioner against Andy Myers, and Terrell Patel has been indicted for a Jussie Smollett type of scheme. If you do a search on Fort Bend County right now, the first thing that comes up is KP George and his fake Facebook scheme to be the Jussie Smollett of Fort Bend. But Dan, I want to ask you, what are you seeing out there? You've been out there for how many days?
Last 12 days.
He's been out at the polls the last 12 days. What are you seeing?
Yes, people taking this to heart. And it's really hurting them too. At national level, there's a different issue, okay? There's national level people taking the top of the ticket in different levels, but when you come to the local county level and precinct level, they see this problem. And I see many of them are feeling very bad about it. And again, this is, some way I should say this is not a party. This is individuals don't do this kind of things. I'm not blaming party for that one thing. I'm not blaming party. Those two individuals should not have done those things. So people having the same feeling and attitude.
Oh, you are seeing people do know about this scheme that KP George and Terrell Peltel did. They know about that.
A lot of most of them know that, and some people don't want to know, or they just reject it. Say, "Well, this is nothing." No, this is not nothing. Okay, if I have done that, you will be crucifying me 10 times.
But overall, what are you seeing out there, just in general? Who's got the momentum?
I can't say who has the momentum, but people are determined. We will see within next 24 hours, we will see the results, and the people who are coming, they are determined. All these things are in their mind, and they are casting their vote according to that. And it's just wait and see. We don't need to make any predictions, or we don't need to sense the momentum right now. 24 hours. And if you listening to us, please see what are the mischiefs happening in Fort Bend County. We could be a lot better. We could be a lot better. We don't need to do all this dirty, nasty things to get elected. Even if you get elected, you don't have to do these nasty things. That's my take.
What do you see, Jacob? What's going on up there?
Well, I think definitely Precinct 3 and that commissioner's race, going back to that, it's neck and neck. You know, Andy had a little bit of an uphill battle because the way they redistricted him. But this Patel situation and his fake racism and all of the felonies indictments have definitely shed a light onto corruption, and Andy's taken advantage of that. We've seen since early voting, Andy's signs have been destroyed. The Republican Party signs have been destroyed. We made signs that have all of their mugshots or photos on them and all of the case numbers, every one of the cases that they're involved in, all the indictments, all of the things that these Democrats are involved in. We've had these signs out, and they've been slashed over and over again, destroyed, kicked, stolen. There's some PACs that were supporting Andy that had Terrell's mugshot out there. Those signs have been destroyed and stolen. So it's really getting to the Democrats. They don't like these signs. They don't like people. People don't like their misdeeds exposed, and we've exposed them this election cycle. We're working hard to educate people on what is actually happening in Fort Bend County. A lot of people don't pay attention, right? They pay attention to Trump, they pay attention to Kamala, but they don't pay attention to what's actually going on in their backyard. And we've worked overtime to expose what is happening. And I think it really is making an impact at the polls. And I think that is definitely a winnable race. And I think Andy's got the momentum. Tomorrow, when it's time to vote, we have to have every Republican has to come out and vote, especially if you're in Precinct 3, but any precinct, anywhere in Fort Bend County. We can take this county back. We've got the momentum, we've got the numbers, but we need you to vote, because these races, some of these races, Andy's race may come down to 100 votes. It literally could come down to 100 votes, and your vote might be just what pushes them over the top.
And so we have a caller on the line. G2, are you there?
I am.
Okay, great. You had something you want to say?
Well, it's interesting listening to what you're talking about, because
You can't hear?
what you're telling me is that Fort Bend County is a microcosm of what's happening nationally. And I got to tell you, when I'm outside, out and about, not in Texas, I get to Texas once in a while, but mostly everywhere else. And when I tell people that Fort Bend County and Harris County, and describe what Fort Bend County and Harris County are, Houston, and I tell them that those are dominated by corrupt Democrats, people outside of Texas are shocked, because the Texas image is of a conservative, healthy, freedom-loving, constitutional-loving kind of culture. And yet you're describing the same kind of disgusting corruption that plagues Baltimore and Boston, that plagues Hartford, Connecticut, and Philadelphia. And it's just shocking.
You can't hear it?
To people outside hearing that you've got that kind of corruption. Can you hear me okay?
G2, my two guests cannot hear you, but I'll let them comment. What G2 is saying is that outside of Houston, in areas such as Baltimore, Philly, and all of those other things, and there's a tech trying to fix that issue. But in those areas, you hear about this this level of corruption, and people are shocked to hear that it's happening here in Fort Bend and Harris counties. The level of corruption, the level of crime, all of that stuff, all of those sorts of things. Did you want to comment on that?
Oh yeah, I mean you can't compare Fort Bend with anywhere in the world. I mean anywhere in America. You know cities and those counties are already known for the most corrupted, crime inflated cities and counties. But Fort Bend is a lot better than that. Where people live with dignity here, and people are moving in Texas, especially to Fort Bend County. Are you trying to make that county better, or are you trying to make it just similar to what is in Washington or Baltimore and things like that? I mean, the people are leaving from there to come here, New York, Chicago, and all that. And what are you trying to do? You just make Fort Bend County as Chicago, Washington, Baltimore.
Right.
That's not the best way to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
Jacob, what do you
That's
think?
not the way to do it.
Can you hear him?
And that's. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear him?
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
It was turned down.
Okay, we got you now. Go.
All right, so you make a good point. I mean, that's the image of Fort Bend County. But when you tell me that the sitting county judge is actually guilty of making up fake racism, because we know racism is always in greater demand than supply. That's why they have to keep faking it. And they use that to tarnish the people of Fort Bend County, to make them seem like these backward racist people. And the disrespect that shows to the community is astonishing. And then the corruption that you're talking about, the same kinds of corruption we see in these other cities, that's just simply unacceptable. And so it's great to hear some of these candidates. Now, I've had the opportunity to speak to some of the candidates you're talking about, specifically the sheriff candidate and some others. And you've got great candidates on the slate for the Fort Bend County Republican Party. It's exciting to see that turnaround. And even within the in the Fort Bend County and Texas Republican Party, I think there has been a shift, a movement away from the old sort of establishment, somewhat corrupt way of doing business to much more of a patriotic, constitutional, conservative community. And that's what restores the greatness of Fort Bend, the greatness of Texas, and the greatness of the United States. So I'm really excited to see what you've got going down there, and I'm very excited about the outcome this election. Let me just touch briefly on an area I've been focused on, which is southeast Pennsylvania, so Philadelphia and the collar counties that surround it. I was in a semi-rural area on Saturday with a group of about 70, 80 people. There was a Trump bus there with a lot of the sort of Trump team celebrities on there, people like Bernie Carrick and Peter Navarro. And the energy and excitement in that crowd was astonishing. It was so much energy. And then the cars going by are beeping and cheering. I then go down into the heart of Northeast Philadelphia. Now, this is a very urban, very challenged community, 100 years of Democrat control. And I was at a sidewalk rally waving flags and Trump signs, and I will tell you, the response from the passersby was again astonishing. The energy of that crowd, which was black and white and brown and female and male, it's just a really the palette of America was on that sidewalk. And the cars going by were, again, beeping, and it was celebratory. Maybe 10% in this urban Philadelphia market, 10% of the cars were rude and crude. 90% of the cars were beeping and supportive. That's an astonishing thing. What I'm telling you is, whether you're in the inner city urban markets or out in the semi-rural markets, you're getting the same reaction. Later that night, I went to an event called Trump Unity. I didn't know it at the time, but it was sponsored by the Log Cabin Republicans. That's a gay Republican group. And the energy there was exactly the same. And that crowd was about 50-50 female-male. The other crowds were more female, like 60 or 70% female. So they always say that we don't have any traction with the suburban females. Well, I see it every day. I saw it on Saturday. I saw it in the urban market. And then going to the event held by the Log Cabin Republicans, the enthusiasm and excitement among that crowd was palpable. And it was one of the best events I've been to. It was incredible. And so what I'm telling you is that no matter what community I seem to touch into, Muslim, Christian, urban, suburban, rural, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. Wherever we go, we're finding large pockets of extraordinary support for this constitutional American movement that goes right down to your local Fort Bend County and Harris County candidate. It's out there now. And I think the reason is that the Republicans that are running right now, from Donald Trump to your sheriff candidate, Marshall Slott, right? What's his?
Yes, Marshall
give me the
Slott.
name again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marshall Slott. That guy, he's a great candidate. You've got great school board candidates down there in some cases. You know, you go from the president race down to the county races, the township races, and what we're finding this time is candidates are actually standing up for issues. They've got real issues to run on, and they're making promises to the American family saying, we're going to protect your kids from the groomers in schools. We're going to protect your children from the pornography in schools, and you know that's in Texas too. And we're going to reestablish the rule of law, the blind rule of law that doesn't care what your political affiliation is. It's going to go back to being a constitutional-based legal system, which we've largely lost in this country. You know, there's a promise being made, and the American people are saying, that's what I'm ready for, even in an area like inner city Philadelphia, where it's been 100 years of corrupt Democrat rule. So I got to tell you, the energy that I'm feeling, no matter who I'm talking to, where I'm going, it's incredible. And I think we're rolling into tomorrow with tremendous momentum. There are two threats. In states like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, there's a significant threat of election fraud. That's real. It's documented. It's a significant threat. The other threat is that people get overconfident and just don't turn out. Now, when I look at Harris County and Fort Bend County being Democrat-controlled, and in many cases by radicals like K.P. George, and I'm thinking, how could any voter, somebody who hunts, somebody who sports shoots, somebody who fishes, somebody who's a Christian, somebody who's a Muslim, how could any voter not turn out and allow Fort Bend County or Harris County to remain controlled by radicals? It just can't be. So despite the momentum and the energy I'm feeling wherever I go, and I'm hearing it from your candidates, no matter, it's the voter that turns out tomorrow that determines the future of this nation. So to the point you both made earlier, the voters have to come out to the polls and they have to vote to save this country. They have to vote to restore this Constitution. We need every living soul to get out there and vote for their families, their community, and their nation. So the decision tomorrow will be made by those who choose to get off the couch. Now, the other side in southeast Pennsylvania put 800 canvassers in that market this weekend. They knocked thousands of doors, trying to convince the leftists, the radicals, and the uninformed, and there are a lot of uninformed, to come out and vote for the radical globalist agenda, the Harris, Waltz, that whole crowd. So they're not giving up without a fight. But there's no question that when Kamala Harris spends her Sunday in one place, and it's Michigan that she's fighting to hold on to, they know that they're in trouble. But again, in the end, the decision is made by the voter that gets off the couch, goes to the poll, and fills out that ballot. We need everybody to get to these polls tomorrow. We cannot expect it to go well. We can't feel this momentum and say, well, then they don't need me. We need everybody. Because if we lose this one, we lose the nation. And if you lose this one in Harris County or in Fort Bend County, you lose the opportunity to return your counties to common sense rule and the rule of law. So I quite enjoyed listening to your conversation. It's informative. And, because I've had the opportunity to speak with some of your candidates, on Chris's show here by phone, I know a little bit more than somebody who doesn't live there would normally know. I think you've got great folks lined up. This is a really exciting time, and I'm just glad I got the chance to hear you kind of walk through the details. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, while you're saying that, certain candidates are coming to mind, like, for example, Patricia Gubera running for JP Court. She's running for judge for Justice of Peace Court. And she's a woman who has spent the last 10 years or so in the legal system. And she's learned those courts, and she's not a political person, but she's putting her hat in the ring. And I think she'd make a great judge. Like you said, you have Marshall Slott. His resume is steeped in law enforcement, top to bottom. He ran a special unit that monitored crime across the Harris and Fort Bend County line, and he made sure that the two county departments were working together. So, yeah, and then, of course, we have Andy Myers, and that race is pivotal. Andy Myers, lifelong, he's a foundational member of Fort Bend County. I mean, he's been around for some time. and he's always been the guy to vote against tax hikes. He's always been a financial stalwart. And finally, you have Alicia Connie. Alicia Connie running for county constable. And Alicia Connie, I mean, his business background is incredible. He's a very young man, and he has quite a booming business. And all he wants to do is apply those business skills to Fort Bend County. He wants to simply run that county constable office, and try to tackle these issues that we have. So we have a lot of candidates. Tell me what you think.
Well, I want to say, don't harass my Fort Bend County in president or by the county, right? Fort Bend County, we're right next to Harris County, and we have an opportunity to be something different than Harris County. And we have an opportunity to reject Kamala Harris. Tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow is the day that we get to make that decision. And every Republican who comes out to vote, your vote matters. Don't let anybody tell you. Don't let the media tell you that Kamala's ahead. Right now, we're hearing a lot about that. Kamala's ahead everywhere. Kamala's ahead everywhere. That's a lie. They're lying to you to get you to stay home. Republicans who stay home elect Democrats. And if you stay home, you're going to elect Democrats, whether it's your sheriff, who's not going to come when you need him, whether it's the president, who's probably going to get us into World War III, and Trump's our only hope. I believe that. I think Trump's our only hope from keeping us out of World War III. And I've got kids that could get drafted. I don't want World War III. If you don't want that for your kids, get off the couch. Vote. Tomorrow's the day. We can win this election, but it's going to require that we all do our part. Some of us, it's been working for the party, or volunteering really for the party, not working, but working as a volunteer for the party. Some of us, it's going out and working at the polls and watching over the elections. Some of us, it's just getting up tomorrow and saying, you know what? I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if the wind's blowing. I'm going to go out and I'm going to vote, and I'm going to vote Republican for my family, for my community, and for my country. And that's what we need to do tomorrow. We need everybody out to vote. I can't say it enough. We need the voters to come out and vote.
I think Fort Bend County is the most pivotal county in America, because if the Democrats take Texas, they take the country, the globalists take the planet. Plain and simple. It's a domino effect. And why is Fort Bend County the most pivotal? Because the Democrats have their hold on the urban counties, and they need the attached suburban counties. And Fort Bend County is the one of all the counties that meet that criteria, attached suburban counties. Fort Bend County is their number one pick because of the demographics. They think because of the demographics, they can take it, and because they have a smooth set of criminals running Fort Bend County. As much as we criticize the Fort Bend County administration, I will say they work their backs off to ensure that Democrats win. That's why George Soros drops so much money in Fort Bend County. That's why Mark Zuckerberg draws so much money in Fort Bend County, because he has the smoothest criminals running Fort Bend County, okay? And so they need to take Fort Bend. If they take Fort Bend, it moves their momentum forward in taking the state of Texas. And if they take the attached suburban communities and everybody just moves to the countryside, taking the countryside will be like, it'll be like a Soviet tank rolling through a Polish village. Won't be much of a job. Be fairly easy. So I think all the stakes are on Fort Bend County, and everybody needs to get out and save our county. I don't want to move. Okay, me and my wife, we put our feet down in Fort Bend County. We don't want to move. We want to be here. And these county commissioner races, everything, it all matters now. So we need everybody to get out there and save Fort Bend County. G2, what do you got to say?
Well, listen, what you're saying sounds like hyperbole and the rantings of a person who's, afraid or overly. Listen, it's not. They've been talking about turning Texas blue for 20 years. They've been specifically, methodically working on it for 20 years. When you talk about the money that's coming into that community, it's coming in for a reason. What you just said is exactly on point. If they continue to hold that territory that they've got now, if they continue to expand that territory, Texas will flip. Now, so what? All right, so it's Democrat, Republican, uniparty, whatever, right? Well, it turns out that's not right. because you mentioned Alicia Connie, who I also got to speak with. This is a very smart guy, and his motivation is clear. He's looking to do the job in a way that serves the community. He doesn't need the money. Again, Marshall Slott, this guy's the classic professional, the guy you need in that job. But if the leftists can hold that line, if they can hold that county, then they can move further into Texas. And if Texas falls, the nation falls. So what? What's it mean? Yeah, we're not talking about whether capital gains are 25 or 28%. Right now, the federal government, Department of Health and Human Services, the United States government, has publicly stated they've lost 320,000 children. Now think about that. Those kids, many of them came across the border into Texas. The federal government fanned them out across the nation with this travel program they have. And in many cases, they've been delivered by the federal government to handlers that are using them for sexual exploitation. Now, that also sounds crazy, right? Well, you go back and listen to some of the reports. There's a cartel member who was on the list, which is a 40,000-person list, and it's limited to 40,000. And that list is of transnational criminal organization members. If you apply for asylum, you come off the list. This guy applied for asylum. He is now the sponsor of 16 children delivered by the federal government. Senator Chuck Grassley, just, I'd say 90 days ago, put out more information about how 50 children were delivered to one address by the United States government into the hands of people who are either trafficking them for labor or for sex. What we're talking about are things that were unimaginable in America just a decade ago. But they're real now. Now let's look at fentanyl. That fentanyl is coming across that border, and we know that it originates in China. It moves to the cartels. The cartels manufacture it into a consumable drug. They ship it in across the border into Texas and then distribute it across the country, coast to coast, and from the Rio Grande to the Great Lakes. They have killed 400,000 Americans in 4 years with that drug. If you look at opiate overdoses, almost 95%, depends on the numbers you look at, 78 to 95% involve fentanyl. But the rest are xylazine and other things that are coming across the border, the heroin. The cartels have killed 400,000 Americans. And the government that's in place today, and that government all the way down to your county government, supports keeping things as they are, meaning an open border that's undefended, a steady flow of this chemical weapon, fentanyl, and more tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dead Americans. How is this not a scandal? Well, it's not a scandal because this country's become something today none of us can recognize if we stare it in the face. And then they say, well, the economy's doing great. Look, the employment numbers are up. If you look at the employment numbers, you're going to find a couple of things that are troubling. One is that every time they create these incredible employment numbers, a few months later, they do a downward adjustment and reverse them out. If you look at the makeup of these employment numbers, you find that a huge number are for government, 75,000 in 1 month, if that's even possible, and that there is now a shift toward part-time work. So we're down about 1.3 million jobs in full-time jobs. That means that if you had a job working at a factory or in some other engaged job that was full-time, that was paying for benefits, and you were raising your family on it, you lose that job, and you replace it with a job at a fast food restaurant at a gas station, you're now making less money and have no benefits. The statistics we're seeing today count that as job growth because you lost one but added two. That's counted as job growth. All of the job growth has been in part-time jobs. Earlier you mentioned crime statistics, and the crime statistics we were told mean that the crime is going down. It's going down. We heard the President of the United States, or at least the person acting as one, said so. And then you see the quiet adjustment the FBI did is they said, well, in fact, rather than being down, crime is actually up. And we're talking about violent crime exactly as you stated it. The thing is, what we're looking at now isn't hyperbole or exaggeration. We're looking at a circumstance in this country in this time that is unlike anything we could ever see before, nothing we recognize. And when you tell me that the county judge in Fort Bend County is out faking racism because there isn't enough of it to go around, he needs to fake it so that he can win an election, and then the other corruption that you've been talking about, listen, it's not just at the national level. It's not just at the state level. It's at the county level. It's at the township level. We have a chance tomorrow to flip this in a new direction. And if we as a people fail to do so, then we bear responsibility for what we hand our children. Now, in the community you're serving, there are a lot of folks who are really focused on education and their children. They want their children to grow up in a world full of opportunity. That can't happen when your school boards are controlled by radicals and when your law enforcement isn't interested in protecting children. Tomorrow is the day we flip it. So I'm just echoing what you folks are saying. This is a momentous election. We need everybody out. And now you're going out not just because you have a friend that's running for office or you kind of like their 30-second ad. You're going out to save your county, your state, and the nation. And it's not an overstatement. It's not hyperbole. That's just where we are. Anyone that thinks these countries can't flip, look at Venezuela. At one time, the fourth most prosperous country in the world. Now, a dictatorship. Look at country after country that's flipped. Look at England, where now in England, they arrest more people for speech violations than Russia does. Tomorrow's the day. We have a job to do. If we fail, we bear the responsibility for what we do to our children.
You know, I always say that I can only imagine that the Australians, when they go to sleep at night, they pray that Texas stays red. And I think that Fort Bend County, again, is the place for that to happen. Because, again, everything G2 was saying about the globalist agenda is being implemented right here in Fort Bend County. Our border's wide open. You never hear the county Democrats talk about it. There is a constitutional sheriff group that is dedicated to working with law enforcement to secure the border. Our county sheriff didn't join it. Marshall Slott said he absolutely will. And so, you know, it's as if every globalist agenda, every part of that agenda that's here, the county Democrats are either support it or they don't want to talk about it. What do you think, Jacob?
Well, I think that tomorrow's the day. I'm going to go back to it. Tomorrow's the day that we take Fort Bend County back. And our sheriff is probably the most important race that we have in this election, because it really is about our families. It really is about our children. It really is about the future. And when we allow the Democrats to just run rampant and to be corrupt, I mean, our sheriff violated someone's First Amendment rights. There's a lawsuit against our sheriff for violation of a citizen's First Amendment rights. Federal court just ruled that he had violated a citizen's First Amendment rights. He's been on record saying that owning a gun is a privilege. So the first two amendments of the Constitution, he does not respect. When we have a sheriff who is the chief law enforcement officer who doesn't want to follow the law, we have a problem. Fort Bend, we have a problem. Tomorrow's the day to solve this problem. We need you to vote. We need you to vote and bring your friends and ask 10 friends. If you voted, my other thing I have to say to people, if you've already voted, make sure everybody you know has voted. There's a lot of people that haven't voted, and we need you to ask 10 friends. Text 10 friends tonight. Make 10 phone calls. I asked one neighbor to do that. He texted 200 people after he voted, because it's that important. And people know it. They feel it in their bones, and they want to do something. And if you want to do something, if you've already voted, ask 10 friends to vote.
That's a great way to close us out. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your time, Jacob Lee. I appreciate your time, G2, Dan Matthews. And with that being said, tomorrow's the big day. Get out there and vote. And we'll be back on